Hello, everyone, and welcome to Marvel Talk on a special Thursday night. The episode has ended in less time than it took to watch the episode. Andre and I have only been able to watch it once, so you're going to get a very raw review of Episode 4 of Season 2 of Loki, Heart of the TVA. Andre, we're in the non-spoiler section. This is going to be a very brief section. What was your words that you said to me as soon as the episode ended?
I'm so mad. It's time to cross a line. It's time to make an impact tonight. It's Thursday night. We're here to talk Marvel talk.
We've got our good friend Astrid Pizarro in the chat. We've got our good friend Bobby Petito. Thank you both for joining us. We greatly appreciate it.
Bobby Petito, how you doing, sir?
Astrid says you finished the episode just in time.
Love you, Astrid.
Absolutely. The Astrid pose.
I'm adding a heart.
There we go. Yeah, the ending of this episode, which we'll get to, is infuriating.
Oh my god. But damn, like
you can see why the screener copies stopped at episode 4.
Oh, 100%, because it's about dude, this was a very exposition heavy episode. I the ending got me, but I and there's some cool little spots in this episode, but it ranks pretty low for me.
I'm going to disagree. I think this episode ranks very high because it does all the heavy lifting that the entire season is based off of, and I like that because we talked about this in episode 1. About how there were portions of these things that we need to see from another point of view, and we need to see certain things. And they're explaining things that we've seen in the past.
Oh, I flat out said after that first episode, it's going to be revealed that Loki pruned Loki.
Yes.
I flat out said that.
Well, thank you for jumping into the spoiler section.
Oh, I apologize. Spoilers.
We're going to go ahead and do that, though. So for anybody who hasn't seen the episode yet, this is your warning. Hi, thank you for watching.
Bye.
Please kindly leave if you don't want to know what happens in the episode tonight. Because, oh boy, while it may have been exposition heavy, we learned a lot in this episode.
We did. But we also learned a lot of the same shit we've already known.
Yeah. So the episode begins with a recap, as always. Recaps are important, though. What they recap is always an important detail. But it's basically most of what we've seen in the previous couple episodes.
Yeah, I skipped.
They return to the exact moment that we left the episode last week, with Renslayer and Miss Minutes standing over the body of He Who Remains in the crumbling citadel at the end of time. We get this wonderful view of all the branching timelines at the end of time. Unlike on the sacred timeline and in the time loom, you see all the branches that still exist at the end of time, which is what's causing the issues with the loom that we'll find out about later on in the episode. Miss Minutes then goes ahead and says, there's something that you need to see. Because he didn't do this alone. And she shows a recap to Renslayer of what happened at the end of the war. We've got our friend Let's Get Political in here saying, can I join? No, unfortunately. You can join us in the chat, as always. You can go ahead and talk in the chat, but unfortunately you cannot join the live stream. I do apologize. We have Renslayer seeing the a recap of the conversation that we got part of earlier on in the season when Loki found that version of the war room, and he hears that clip from He Who Remains, and we have that here. So I'm going to go ahead and play it right now.
You are quite a marvel. I will be proud to lead with you. You made a difference in this war. Thank you for being on my team.
Yes, this is a key piece of evidence that we now have time dated. It happens at the end of time, but this is in result of the multiversal war. This is directly after He Who Remains wins the multiversal war and destroys all the other Kangs. Miss Minutes informs us that not only was Renslayer part of the war, she led the troops into battle during this war.
Mm-hmm.
She was the general of this war. She wasn't just a judge. She wasn't just somebody who worked for the TVA. She was vital to the TVA. She was vital to everything that's going on. Mel Ball, hello. Thank you for joining us. Both of our tag team partners are in the chat today. We greatly appreciate both of you being here.
Yep.
What did you think of this revelation to something we thought we already knew, but getting the confirmation? And then Protocol 42, and I'll let you go ahead and explain what Protocol 42 is.
Yeah. So like I found it like it wasn't super surprising. I knew we were gonna get everybody was all the stories out there. It's like she's a variant and shit. It's like no, but like her being out there as like I always thought she's gonna be a partner of his, maybe his love, like his love at some point. And then she leaves, and they announce Protocol 42, and I'm thinking, how does this Star Wars? And then you revealed it to me, the 42 being Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I'm like, God damn it! Kind of bringing the two worlds together, Protocol 42. But Protocol 42, erasing the minds of all the soldiers and his general, taking all their minds away and turning them into what we would get from the TVA.
Yeah, I thought it was a great touch. Whenever something sci-fi needs a number to associate with something important, it always seems to come back to Douglas Adams' 42. The answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. Sorry, I've just spoiled the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy for anybody who wants to.
Oh my god! If you haven't seen
that movie and you're watching the show, I mean, first, how? Secondly, please go watch that at your earliest convenience because it's fantastic.
I haven't watched it since it came out, but I
watch it once a year. Sam Rockwell is fantastic in it. It's almost as good as when he plays Justin Hammer in the Marvel stuff. Oh, come on. He's fantastic in that. You haven't seen it enough. We got Bobby Petito saying, appreciate you.
No, I'm talking about the Justin Hammer. I'm talking the Justin Hammer. That's my reaction to his Hammer stuff. Not to.
I love Justin Hammer. I think Justin Hammer is perfect. I miss Justin Hammer. I want him back in the MCU. And I think we're going to get him back in the MCU in the near future.
Hammer is supposed to be an old man, not sexy Sam Rockwell.
So we go ahead and find out that Renslayer, not only was it Renslayer who was getting her mind wiped, but everybody who was part of the war, who's part of the TVA. Because she talks about how she's going back to the TVA and they're going back to lead together. And he says, I'll be right there. And he leaves her. And he lets her walk away. And he never goes to her again, it seems like.
Yeah, because he let Miss Minutes go wipe their minds and just hangs out at the end of time.
Miss Minutes is not happy about this, but more importantly, Renslayer's not happy about this. Mm. But she thinks that if she was going to run everything with him at the end of time anyways, that she should be able to run the TVA on her own. So that's going to set her on her course in this episode. Meanwhile, Victor Timely is sent to the TVA, as we saw at the end of last week's episode. And we went ahead and saw him sitting in the war room and trying to get accustomed to seeing the faces of Kang, of He Who Remains, all those faces in the war room. And he starts to walk around. And Loki and Mobius are trying to corral him to get him to help go ahead and set up working with the time loop.
Mm-hmm.
But Victor Timely, as a great line from him, says, "I'm from Chicago, friend, the shadyocracy capital of the world. I don't trust anyone."
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that line. He's literally calling himself the same thing we were talking about last week. He's a snake oil salesman. He's a con man. He knows better than to trust anybody. And
you know not to trust people from Chicago. Again, I don't have that experience.
I greatly trust those from Chicago.
I don't trust anybody from Calgary. Come on.
I mean, well, that's because Calgary's in Alberta. And, you know, we all know.
I trust people from Edmonton, not Calgary, though.
Anyways.
Not them weird cowboys.
The thing that gets him to go and help them is when Loki tells him that it's the time loom that he needs to fix, and that without him, nobody can fix it. And he finally seems to be on board. Again, a lot of this episode is expositional. There's not really a lot to feel about most of this. We then get a scene with B-15 talking to Judge Gamble. And again, it's a fine scene. And it would have been something that probably would have gotten a 2-minute cut version of had this been a movie.
Yeah.
But since it's a TV show and you can kind of flesh things out, you have a bit of a longer conversation here with this judge explaining to B-15 how things are changing and how to change the hearts and minds of even those who violently oppose you, like docs, to get them on side.
That's the one thing I found about this episode. Same thing we talked about last episode. A lot of the speeches just went on too long.
And it's a shame because we've talked about how in our last episode, in our last show when we talked about Secret Invasion before the strikes began, we talked about how much we liked the fact that they were letting the actors act and they were letting them kind of go out there and do their thing. And in this episode, especially, we're seeing what happens when you do that with things that aren't interesting in their exposition, but it's things we need to know. These are conversations that need to happen to shape what we're going to see going forward.
Some of them.
I'll be honest, all of them.
Yeah, but like at least with Secret Invasion, I know there's a lot of hate out for that series. I don't see it, but at least to me, they didn't feel like they were retreading the exact same point every goddamn conversation. That's the issue I'm having with Loki this season. Is everything's great. The storyline is really interesting. They keep seeming to retracting this. Oh, we can change people's minds. That has been a conversation we've been having since Loki season 1.
Yep.
And again, it just feels repetitive at this point.
But I like the idea that, as we'll talk about, the Ouroboros of it all, it's a constant loop. It's a constant snake eating its own tail, Ouroboros, which is the meaning of the word Ouroboros. It is a snake that eats its own tail. It's something that has to happen in order for something else to happen to make what happens happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that in the next set, as we have Ouroboros and Casey trying to figure things out in the workshop, and they finally bring Sylvie, Mobius, Loki, and Victor Timely down there. And it's not until he's introduced to Ouroboros that Victor Timely is greatly intrigued and interested for the first time in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to explore the building, and they're like, look, we'll let you explore the entire building once you help us fix what we're doing. Fix what we'll do, and you can explore everything and anything we've got going on. And he says, Ouroboros, you're the person who wrote the TVA handbook. And he's like, yes, but I learned everything I know from a brilliant 19th century inventor by the name of Victor Timely. Oh, By the way, what's your name? And it dawns on him that this is Victor Timely.
Well, he says Victor.
Yeah.
Victor says Victor, and he's just like, oh. And then they both want each other's autographs in their book.
I do love how they nerd out. Obi didn't get his autograph on time. He did not get the autograph that he wanted. That is interesting.
Yeah.
However, this is the moment where we do find out that this show is absolutely using the bootstrap paradox to explain what's going on. Mm-hmm. I didn't know this. I credit all of this to Heavy Spoilers, who explained it to me on the minute and a half, about 5 minutes that I watched of his video before we had to go live. Mm-hmm. But they talk about how the book that Victor is given is written by Ouroboros. Mm-hmm. And Ouroboros wrote all of that based on the inventions of a 19th century inventor by the name of Victor Timely. So to create the TVA and all of the things inside the TVA, it is created by Victor Timely. However, for Victor to create all of the wonderful things in the TVA, he has to have the guidelines that come from Ouroboros. It is the bootstraps paradox. Without one, the other event can't happen. This is why He Who Remains makes sure that in the event of his death, that Miss Minutes takes Revona Renslayer to throw the book into the window to make sure that the book is given to Victor Timely so that it can inspire Ouroboros so that it can run the TVA until the time where He Who Remains dies and everything restarts again.
Mm-hmm. Chicken or the egg, right?
Yes. Spoilers. Yes, we are in the spoiler section.
It says spoilers right across the bottom there.
Oh no, she's doing the spoilers. She's a very, very big River Song fan.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I wasn't aware.
She's a friend of mine who's a very big River Song fan. She's also the reason why I trust people from Chicago.
Never trust people from. I thought it was a thing in the States to never trust people from Chicago because they're all gangsters who do evil things.
We don't talk about it with people from Chicago in the room.
I'm not gonna be able to trust Melanie here when she was to Calgary. So
we then find out about the plan that Casey and Ouroboros have concocted to go ahead and make sure that Victor Timely can help them create something to help create the rings that will use the throughput multiplier that we talked about last week to reset the time loom to take all of these new branch timelines into account. Andre, you are now on her list. The list of Allie Rose, unlike the list of Jericho.
I've never been on someone's list before,
So this episode is now going to revolve around the MacGuffin of the throughput multiplier. However, it kind of looks like the shape of the time ship that Kang the Conqueror will use in the future. Mm-hmm. And I think the throughput multiplier is what's going to power said time ship in the future. But in this case, it needs to power the gizmo that they need to use to fix the timeline. Your thoughts on all of this stuff that's happening here?
How do I say it? It doesn't sound like an asshole. It's a Marvel trope to have the MacGuffin in your series, the thing that's going to solve all your problems, but it doesn't always solve your problems, kind of deal. But because it might just be a key to the future. Yeah, I find it interesting, but again, it's all revolving around this one thing. Yeah, it's a weird feeling because I haven't had full time to bring this in because the ending pissed me off. So I haven't had my full again, I haven't rewatched it a second time to get my true feelings on everything. So it's
Yeah.
weird. This is a weird episode.
And again, it's this. Of course, it would be this episode that we would watch and just react to, as opposed to giving us time to process and redo what we've learned.
Yeah.
To reframe our thoughts, not only in our thoughts, but the thoughts of other people and other reactors, and to get a gauge of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because to let you in on the process of what me and Andre typically do is, I don't know about Andre's exact process, but I think it's similar to mine. We watch the episode on Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
All night, Thursday night or Friday, depending on when the reactor gets their content up. We watch reaction content from various reactors. I watch Real Rejects. I watch Busy Brawn. And I make sure that I watch Omni. Those are the three big ones that I make sure I watch every week to see their reactions. The other two things that I watch on every week, guaranteed, is the Eric Voss New Rockstars Breakdown and Easter Egg Breakdown that typically comes out late at night. So early in the morning, I'll watch it when I wake up on a Friday. And then I'll watch Paul from Heavy Spoilers, and I'll watch his entire breakdown video to understand the things I've missed, to understand the comic knowledge that these gentlemen have that I don't possess because I'm not a huge comic book fan, and to go ahead and get further into the weeds about some of the things that we're seeing, more than just surface level.
Yeah, I'm fairly similar. I watch random YouTube videos. Emergency Awesome. They usually have good content. I like to see.
Yep.
And then I rewatch, and then I talk with you.
Yeah. And then me and Andre will have several conversations before we go ahead and go live. So exactly. As Ashton says, I literally screamed when the credits happened. Yep. Marvel.
This is my exact face. That is exactly what I just didn't word it, but yeah. I was like,
the next scene we get is probably the second most important scene of the entire episode. It is the scene between Loki, Sylvie, and Mobius, where Sylvie is screaming and yelling at Loki, and Mobius specifically, because he wants to go get pie to give the guys time to work. And she's like, you brought me here to fix all of this. You made me bring this man here, and now you want to get pie. While all of these...
Okay, that's the entire part of this whole thing that I have a problem with, because everything she's saying is complete bullshit. They didn't bring her here. They took Victor Timely. She chose to follow them.
Yeah.
She didn't have to come to the TVA. They weren't telling her to come there. They just wanted Victor. So being there, like
I think the crux of her argument is not so much that they kind of forced her. By the way, Ashton says that's such a meme reaction, Andre. We should definitely make that a GIF.
I don't know, but she didn't have to be there. This entire argument she's making is complete bullshit because she didn't have to follow them to the TVA. She didn't have to. Yeah,
it's not. It exists. They didn't make the argument in the correct manner in the episode, but the crux of her argument is by coming to her on her branch timeline and convincing her they needed her to help them get to Timely, to use Timely to help fix everything. Because they told her that her branch timeline is going to be erased if they don't fix this. And all she cares about is her branched timeline not crumbling to a million pieces. That's her argument in this case.
But they didn't need her to catch him. She ended up helping them catch him.
No, they needed her to come with them to do it. Remember, that's why Loki goes to Sylvie originally. They're trying to find Sylvie to try to figure out what they need to do. They need Sylvie with them to do this. Plus, remember, Loki knows he needs Sylvie in the TVA because he's already lived seeing Sylvie in the TVA.
I understand, but it's just her argument doesn't make sense to it. She didn't have to follow them.
She did. She absolutely does.
No, but she could have made the choice to go back to her branch timeline after she kicked Revona into the end of time.
No, because in her mind, she knows that her branch timeline is coming to an end if they don't fix this. So she needs to make sure that it gets fixed so that she can continue living on her timeline.
But also the argument, why can't they go have pie? They're not the people building this shit. Why can't they go relax and have pie? That's the other part is they're what do they have?
Remember, her argument isn't about whether or not they can have pie. Yes, it's part of the argument that she makes. But she wants to understand why Mobius doesn't care about the branch timelines. Because Mobius is scared to go to his branch timeline. He doesn't know who he is, and that's the crux of her argument. That's the piece that she needs to have answered from Mobius is why is he so afraid? Why is he so cold-hearted that it's just another bad day at the office, as she says to him, as opposed to watching all of these timelines get erased? While, yes, he cares about these branch timelines and trying to change things, he's not as invested as B-15 is. He's not as invested in saving the branch timeline that she's living on as Sylvie is. And so his thought of doing something whimsical like having pie is annoying to her because she'd rather be in the room making sure the boys are getting their work done than having pie.
But I looked at that completely as a Sylvie problem. That's Sylvie's issues. That has nothing to do with what this guy's going to do in his day. He goes and eats pie. What does that have to do with her? She can go and stand in that room and watch them work. He can still go eat pie. Her arguing and getting mad at him for wanting to go eat pie because they're two different people who have two different aspects and goals in mind. His goal is let the guys do the work, and then we'll come back and put it out there, which is perfectly plausible and not wrong. Hers is let's get in there and make sure they do the work. Again, not wrong. But her yelling at him for his idea, which isn't wrong, is what bothers me more than anything. Her argument is purely from her opinion, which is her opinion is right, but his opinion is also right.
Agreed, but that's typically how arguments start. I know. Because somebody has an opinion and they feel like that's the only right opinion.
No, I get it.
You've been on this thing called the internet before, correct?
I know, but again, that's why this whole scene, while you say it's the second most important, I look at it as one of the least important and just plot like time filler scenes because this argument never needed to happen.
No, it needs to happen because this is going to be the catalyst that gets Mobius to look at his own life on the sacred timeline.
And that's what I don't want.
That there are scenes at his jet ski shop. We know that Mobius is going to go find his space on the sacred timeline. What if she's already figured out what Eric Voss has already theorized? That little Jack running the McDonald's is Mobius.
I'm just praying it's not because it's just fucking stupid. But I'm really hoping that, like, again, why can't? But the other argument is why can't you just let him? Why does he have to go and have his branch timeline? Why can't he just exist within the TVA for the rest of his life? Why does he have to?
Because she thinks the TVA is rotten to the core and that everything about it is bad.
But it's not because he is good. So not everything about the TVA is bad because he is good.
But in her mind, he's not. In her mind, all he stands for is the TVA.
And that's why this argument is completely moot because it's all from her perspective where she doesn't think of his perspective and his feelings in this argument. So her every bit of things that she says here is completely pointless.
And what you call the that's why I think it's so critical because it's not going to be that she sees things from his point of view. It's the exact opposite. He starts to see things from her point of view.
But that's what's not fair. Why does he have to see it from her point of view?
He doesn't. But in the story that they're telling, that's the key.
And that's just, I almost wish that wasn't going to be the story. Because honestly, I would rather have Mobius just never find out about his place in the timeline. I almost would rather have that. I know we're going to get it, but I would almost rather have that.
I want to know. I want to know who he is on the sacred timeline. I want to see Mobius going wow on a jet ski. I want that moment. I need that moment. I've needed it since the moment I saw him in episode 1 of season 1.
Weirdly, I feel the exact opposite. Because of how far this character has come in season 1 and now here in season 2, I feel even more to the point of He doesn't need to know what his timeline is. He's been adamantly set against knowing what his, and because he said he is content, he is happy in who he is as a TVA agent. Why does he have to go and find out what is good or what is bad out there on the timeline for him? That's the thing. He's happy and content as he is. Why can't he just be happy and content as he is for the rest of his life? That's the biggest issue I have with this scene.
But how is that? How is this scene with Sylvie going at him in this way any different from Loki trying to convince him to do the same thing in episode 2 that we thought was such a heartfelt and wonderful moment?
Again, it's him just saying it's because it's not her. It's not him yelling at him saying you're wrong. It's her. It's him asking questions to the guy. It's a big difference in the way she's approaching it. She's being a bitch. She's just yelling at him saying your opinion of everything is wrong. Where Loki was like, well, why don't you want to? He's asking him questions about how this man feels. That is the conversation.
But at the end of the day,
it just comes off to me. This makes me really dislike Sylvie a lot after this episode. I don't like her anymore. I like her a lot less than I used to because it's like, to me, she is being a Loki, inherently selfish and self-centered. That is exactly what a Loki is at the pure core. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, we're going to leave this for now because obviously we're going to agree to disagree.
Yeah, agree to disagree.
We're going to agree to disagree.
Yeah,
because this is good. Asher says, being that Sylvie is a variant, I was thinking that Loki is arguing with himself. Remember, the argument's not happening between Loki and Sylvie. The argument's happening between Mobius and Sylvie, which is what I think makes this so much more interesting. We then go ahead. I think Asher's talking about the scene we'll talk about in just a little bit. We then get another thought-provoking scene where we have Brad trying to go ahead and play the rah, let's go ahead and break out the TVA so I can get back to my life as an actor on the sacred timeline. To which Dox goes, we know you sold us out, you son of a bitch. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you knew that. Like, yeah, we saw you living your best life on the sacred timeline, Brad.
So good.
And then we get B-15 having a conversation with Dox. And again, a very important conversation. Now, granted,
I like this conversation.
This conversation felt a lot more important than it will in the next 15 minutes. But at the time, it felt very important. And it lost its importance in about 15 minutes. But it's B-15 being like, look, you see the timeline as one thing. I see the sacred timeline now as something different after what I've learned, that we're all variants. We don't agree. But the one thing we can agree about is that the TVA needs to exist. Renslayer's going to come here and she's going to try to take the TVA. Will you fight alongside us? And Dox basically says, I see your point of view, but gives her no answer. Brad wants nothing to do with it. And B-15 walks away. And she goes ahead and she tells the other person, let them stew, let them think, and we'll come back to them once they've had a time to reflect on what we've had. But it was a great conversation about understanding the other's differences and finding common ground where they do agree, which is that the TVA needs to exist, and we'll figure out what we do with the TVA after the fact. But if Renslayer comes in and does what she's going to do, there will be no TVA left. Or not that one we recognize. Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts about this wonderful scene?
It was fine. Again, very exposition heavy. Just it's this side trying to rally the troops. That's what it is.
Yeah. We then go ahead after that. We go ahead and get Loki and Sylvie, which is where I think Ash is talking about. Being that Sylvie is a variant, I was thinking Loki is arguing with himself. This is the moment where we get Loki and Sylvie having a discussion about Mobius, but more importantly about Victor and why Sylvie's here and why she didn't kill Victor and everything else. And she explains that she didn't see fear in the face of He Who Remains when she tried to kill them. And Astrid's confirming, yes, this is the scene she's talking about. Loki and her are talking about Victor, and she's like, I let Victor go because I saw the fear in him. I didn't fear him. He feared me. Not like He Who Remains, who knew who I was, knew what was going to happen, and had accepted what's going to happen. And I like this because of the fact that this is how they're trying to put together 2 and 2. How Loki's trying to explain to her why the sacred timeline in the branches are important, but also why Mobius has to have the viewpoint that Mobius has. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's important because she says, what about all the dead branches? That's the TVA's fault. And Loki goes, yes, but also any of the branches that are alive are because of me and you and B-15 and Loki and Casey and everybody putting faith in what happened at the end of time to keep as many branch timelines alive as possible. I think this was great. I thought it was real fun.
Oh yeah, and the last line that I wrote down in my name just now, it was absolutely perfect because she's asking like, who are we to play God? And like if she's like, because your reference is like playing God, and he goes, we are gods. It's just like I think it was the most perfect line in this episode. Him saying we are gods, because it's like they are. They're literal gods.
Which is why you change your name to it. I think it's great.
I know. I couldn't remember the line when I originally put my name in, so I was like, when we get to the scene, I'm like, oh, I remember the line now. Changing my name. And it's true. Ed, you and me are gods, man.
Oh. I'm a Christian, so I can't say that with a straight face in any way, shape, or form. We then get another conversation with the people who are being held, Dox's crew of Minutemen. Mm-hmm. And her and Brad are trying to figure out what they're going to do. And how Brad got into this position of power, I still don't understand. Why does he have the conversation with her is beyond me.
Well, again, if you watch the first episode, they seem to have a very familiar relationship in that first episode. So that's why they're having the conversation now, because you established that they had a connection in that first episode.
Yep.
So that's why it's the way it is.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just love how the fact that she acknowledges that Brad turned on them and is still willing to listen to his point of view here. As insane as it is that they need to reject B-15. And she's like, B-15's lying to you. And she's like, no. The one thing B-15 does is has integrity. If she's come to us and this is what she's saying, this is what she believes. Whether it's right or wrong, B-15 believes in the things that she's saying. And that we need to at least listen to that point of view. Mm-hmm. Which I like from Dox, because it makes Dox an understandable villain. She did what she was programmed to do, what she thought was right. And now she's sitting here and she has time to think about it, and she's willing to listen to the other side, which is something she should have done in episode 1, but she was too hopped up on, I have to continue doing what I'm supposed to do that. Renslayer then comes in and explains that she has a deal for them. If they work with her and help her take over the TVA, she'll guarantee that all of them have their own life on the sacred timeline. Mm-hmm. And this appeals to some of them, sort of.
Especially Brad.
Because Renslayer even singles him out and says, you had a very good life on the sacred timeline, didn't you? And he turns on the rest of them. And it's great. Some of Dox's last lines in this episode are just so chilling to think about when it comes to Hunter B-15. How does it feel knowing that all of us here would rather die than to follow you out that door? Like, Dox went out like a boss.
She did.
And you can see how excited Miss Minutes is to watch these people die.
I literally wrote that down in my notes. She, like, Miss Minutes seemed way too happy killing the Minutemen. Like, that was fucked up.
All right, we're gonna take a risk here. Give me a moment. I have the episode up. It's my normally I have in the notes section of the app here. I have something up that's going to go ahead and give me the ability to have a structure of the episode. I don't have that today because we just watched the episode. So I'm going to play a few seconds on silent. Everybody's screaming and dying. And look at Miss
Brad. He's like, Brad and Revona are just like halfway mortified. But Miss Minutes, oh my God.
And there, look at that. Brad now realizes how much trouble he's in.
And Miss Minutes just like super happy. I'm like, holy crap.
We have JER jumping in on the YouTube side to go ahead and give an idea, a theory, that Lokius will recruit Mobius at the jet ski store. So that when Mobius becomes a TVA agent, it's not because of anybody else. It's because of Loki going to him on the sacred timeline and finding him and bringing him in. Interesting idea.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So again, in this scene, Brad now realizes that it's gone too far. He can't do anything else. So he's got to go ahead and follow Revona out. And he's got to do what she says. And then comes the Coco scene. Andre's favorite scene of the entire episode. Andre, I'm going to go ahead and let you talk about the temp pads not working and Coco.
So, yeah, all the temp pads seem to start failing, and they do realize it's Miss Minutes. She's messing with the system. And they have to reboot the system. But Victor Timely gets very distracted by Mobius, who comes in with a hot cocoa. And he's like, how did you get that? Hot cocoa machine? Hot cocoa machine? Hot cocoa machine? And he's like, I need to see that. So the other guard, the random guard of the episode takes him to the machine where he gets his cup.
All right, we'll stop there for a second. So the other part about this is it's the same random guard they've had throughout the episodes.
Yeah, so that's why I said random guard of the episode.
Yeah, but it's also the same one who pruned Mobius in season 1. This is the same guard who apologized to Mobius in episode 1.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. But yeah, so random guard number 3 takes him to the hot cocoa machine, and he's like, Victor's like staring at it as he's putting the cocoa in, and he takes it out, and he's like sniffing it, and then he looks at the other guy, and he's like, and like holds it out to him. The guy's like, no, and he just keeps holding it out to him, and the guy eventually takes it, and then Mobius just like, yay, and he turns around to make himself another, and as the guy's lifting it to drink it, pruned. It was such a sweet scene until fucking Brad had to ruin it.
Dude, Brad ruins everything.
Goddamn Brad. I've never met I've met one good Brad in my life, and that is my friend Brad, my buddy Brad. But that is the only good Brad I've ever met in my life.
Yeah. This is then the moment where they go back to the workshop and they realize that it's Miss Minutes who is going ahead and messing with them, and that he's going to have to go ahead and take Miss Minutes offline to go ahead and make it work. Mm-hmm. But Mobius goes after Mobius and the crew decide that this is the time now. They have to do it because they know Renslayer is coming. As Astrid says, Brad's always in the way.
Mm-hmm. And Brad also got a hold of Victor Timely at this point, too.
Yep. And this is where everybody comes together. All of their little itty-bitty conversations, B-15 finding everybody dead in the holding cell because Renslayer killed them all.
I can't imagine what... So, again, they get cubed, which is like the Brad got put in the cube a couple episodes ago, but it completely crushed down. So, like, it doesn't delete matter, though. It can't delete matter. So when it eventually went to a certain point, does it burst full of blood and guts?
We don't know. They never show us what happened.
I know. Or is it just a crushed cube of blood and guts inside this compressed cube? Like the thought of it is more disturbing than any horror movie I could watch right now.
I mean, I guess. But the funny thing is your own thoughts are what make it horrifying. It's not what they did, because they just told you that they're all dead.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we find out that Renslayer is in charge, and she's not going to listen to Timely anymore. She's not going to be struck by his good looks or the charm or her feelings for him. That's all taken care of. That's done and over with. And he's like, all right, well, I guess I'm working for them now. Timely knows how to make sure that he doesn't get ended. He makes sure and he works for whoever's going to help him get what he needs done. But as they go ahead and try to go and get Loki and Sylvie are trying to go get Victor Timely, while the rest of them are going to Cerebro to go ahead and open the Cerebro door to it's the outer door right before the blast doors in that little chamber where the time loom is outside. But it has that X like Cerebro. So we see that Miss Minutes is messing with everything. Not only is she messing with the time pads, but she's also messing with the elevators to make sure that nobody can get to her and Revona. And we do have our friend Chris Parrish jumping in to say hello, Chris Parrish. Hello, boys. Hello, Parrish. Thank you for joining us. By the way, Parrish is, if you haven't seen it already, he is the new YouTube champion for the What the F Do We Know About Wrestling Trivia. He is the YouTube champion now for that. I will be back, as I was unavailable this month. I will be back next month to regain my championship that I lost to Bobby Petito last month, that Parrish took from Bobby Petito this month. Anyways, back to Loki. This now becomes a jumping set of scenes where we see Loki trying to find out where he is. But we start seeing two Lokis. We see the Loki from episode 1 with the little thingy in his hand that tells him when he has to get pruned. And we see Loki, the one that's looking for Victor Timely.
Yeah, there's Loki, and then there's Loki.
Yes, the Loki.
Yeah.
And then there's Sylvie Loki. We then hear the phone ringing,
and then maybe even a Mobius Loki.
There might even be a Mobius Loki
somewhere out there.
We hear the phone ringing, and Loki remembers this from his past, and he sees himself, and he knows what he needs to do. And he watches as Sylvie opens the doors to the elevator because Miss Minutes is now not even letting the elevator door button open. She has to pry it open with her fingers, which is back to episode 1. And then Loki prunes Loki, and he looks at Sylvie and he's like, this will all make sense later. Which is one of the greatest lines in the episode.
That was pretty good.
After that, he answers the phone, and we find out that it's not Neo on the other end. It's not Trinity on the other end. It's not Morpheus on the other end. It's almost Morpheus. It's Mobius and OB. Mobius and OB are waiting like, where's Victor? We need Victor's time aura to get this whole plan going. And he's like, we're trying. Miss Minutes is getting in the way. She's prohibiting us from doing what we need to do. And now we get to the end of the episode.
Well, okay, so they do the reset here,
yeah,
which shuts her down, which They come back to the room and it shows Miss Minutes glitching out. And it's actually really kind of cool, the glitch out and failure of Miss Minutes. And right at the end, right before she glitches out, she says,
I have her exact lines here if you want.
Do it. Say it.
All right. So it starts with, they're taking me offline. I'm losing my cognitive facilities. I only have moments left. Victor, I need to tell you. And she's glitching and warbling all over. We're seeing multiple Miss Minutes. And then we see a super angry Miss Minutes, and she goes, you will never be him.
Mm-hmm.
And then she becomes the Microsoft Paperclip version of Miss Minutes, where it's like a clock, and it has a wandering hand.
And then it's just like, hello, I'm Miss Minutes. And it's just like, it was absolutely crazy. I loved it.
Yep, it was great. And it's at this point that Brad realizes that Loki's here. And Loki finally does what we all wanted him to do. And he prunes Brad.
Well, no, yeah. Well, not yet. So he ends up... No, because they capture Brad first. Sylvie enchants him, who goes back in the room.
Oh, yeah.
And Brad ends up... They run in. They grab Victor. And Brad prunes Revona.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I did make a mistake there.
Yeah, and Brad's just standing there like dumbfounded. He's just like, and they run off. Brad never got hit with it. Revona got hit. Brad's still alive.
This is true. Unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't want. I like Brad. Weirdly, he's a dick, but I like Brad.
She says, throw back to the Microsoft Paperclip. Everybody remembers Clippy, the Microsoft Paperclip.
The Microsoft Word Paperclip.
Yep.
That annoying little bastard.
And Mini Astrid, or Alana, says that Miss Minutes is Delulu, as one of my favorite TikTokers will say.
Yeah, so I loved Brad just like, come on, come here, come over here, come here, I need to talk to you. And he pulls her aside and he just says some weird ass shit and then prunes her. It's just like perfect. I was like, yes. Oh, I loved it so much.
I also love how Victor Timely still doesn't understand what Loki is and continues to call him wizard.
Well, he's a god.
So Victor puts his head inside the machine, and the time aura is revealed to be that of He Who Remains.
It literally goes, welcome, He Who Remains. Yeah.
Which is great. And then we see that everything is much worse than we originally predicted. Much worse than we originally predicted. Loki's going to go out there and Victor says, nope, I need to be the one to do it. Because if something goes wrong, I need to be able to go ahead and fix it.
Which makes sense. It's his technology in the end. Yeah. It's also Ouroboros', but it's their technology in the end.
Well, Ouroboros is definitely not going to go out there. And so it's either Loki or Victor Timely. And Victor agrees to go out there. And they tell him he has to be quick. And boy, is he quick. Because...
oh, so fast.
I'm going to play a couple seconds again. Okay, we can't play too much.
Yeah, no audio. Spaghetti!
And there's Victor Timely. A bunch of spaghetti. Does this remind you of anything from any movie in particular? No.
Infinity War?
No,
not Infinity War.
This is completely different from Infinity War.
You spaghetti the Guardians.
Well, a little bit, but not like this. It instantly made me think of Multiverse of Madness. When Wanda takes out Mr. Fantastic in strands of spaghetti.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh my God, this is the cloud that creates the Fantastic Four.
Probably not, but yes.
No.
But maybe.
Loki is now going to be Mr. Fantastic. Sylvie's now...
No, stop.
Mobius is the Human Torch. And then Ouroboros becomes...
Oh, I'm sorry. Andre's mic stopped working. How crappy is that?
Yeah,
I started singing Chicken Noodle Soup as Victor died.
and Ouroboros is the thing.
Again, too.
Ouroboros.
And Alana said Multiverse of Madness. It absolutely reminds me of Multiverse of Madness.
This is turning into the Fantastic Four show, ladies and gentlemen.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
Oh, look, I need a new co-host. No, I'm just kidding. We did overgo something, so we're going to go ahead and go back to it because our friend Jer from the YouTube chat brings it up. Since the safety protocols are off, the time stone could be used.
But aren't they just paperweights there?
Because of the safety protocols that make the magic doesn't work in the TVA.
Oh yeah, right. Because Sylvie and Loki can use their magic now.
Andre, you've been scolded.
That's right. Yes, Fantastic Four, backdoor Fantastic Four show. Well, okay, I'm not saying I'll stop on them becoming the Fantastic Four, but I feel like this scene will be replicated when you get the Fantastic Four movie in a couple years. You're going to get this explosion happening again, and it's what creates the Fantastic Four. Again, it's all a theory. But
I tend to lean towards.
I love you, Chris Parrish. I love you, Chris Parrish.
That is absolutely a different movie. I was trying to avoid that comment, but that's fine. We're going to continue moving on because Ashton has little children watching. No, what I think is more likely to create the Fantastic Four is I think we're going to get Battle World in Secret Wars. And I think once Secret Wars is done, it is going to be a soft reboot. And we're going to end up in a world that has the pieces of this timeline that we're taking, Earth 616. We're going to go ahead and take...
The problem is Fantastic Four is coming out before Kang and Secret Wars. So
I don't think it's going to. I think in the end of the day, I think they're going to get swapped.
Well, it's May 2nd, 2025, and Secret Wars until...
Yeah, but Deadpool just got moved back. Blade still hasn't happened yet. Daredevil's being rescheduled.
Okay, so Secret Wars will be 2028, Kang will be 2027, and Fantastic Four will be 2026.
I still don't think the Fantastic Four happens before Secret Wars. I think we flip-flop it.
It will.
No, Ash, do not explain it. Just tell them no. Tell them Parrish is a bad, bad man. He's like John Cena. He's a bad, bad man. Anyways, going back to Loki and getting off the Fantastic Four because there's nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with them. Victor Timely turns into spaghetti and dies. And then the time loom machine explodes. And it slowly explodes. Like those space explosions that you see on like these time-lapse NASA videos where everything kind of explodes slowly over a course of time. Everybody goes ahead and sees it exploding. And they have their moment to take it. And the last eyes we see are Loki's as the whole world explodes. And we get about 5 seconds of black before the credits roll. And that is the heart of the TVA in episode 4 of Loki.
Oh, fucking ending, man. I have to wait a goddamn week.
It's so good.
I have to wait a goddamn week now, and I'm so mad. I'm so mad.
But yes, so that's episode 4. We will tackle and we will let you know when episode 5 is going to happen as we know.
Most likely Friday. I'm opening. I got open shifts next week, so I should be okay to do a Friday evening stream. So
we will see.
Yeah,
and then remember, in 2 weeks, the Loki finale show and the Miss Marvel's show, the Marvel's movie review, will both take place probably that weekend. One or both of them may be recorded, depending on availabilities. because that's going to be a busy weekend for the two of us. Not to mention next weekend is also Crown Jewel weekend, so we got to make sure that we work around Crown Jewel. No. Some of us still watch WWE and don't have to stay up till 6 a.m. to watch Japanese wrestling.
I just watch it when I get up in the morning now.
But Andre, where can the good people find you this upcoming week?
This week, you can find me all over my channel, youtube.com/Andre and Melba Wrestling Talk, where we're chatting Japanese professional wrestling. This coming Saturday morning, we just dropped the last of our episodes we have recorded. We will be doing a stream where we're going to record, next stream, we're going to record at like midnight our time. After we get home from Love Pro Wrestling, because me and Mel are going to do it in the costumes we're wearing to the show. We're going to review Love Pro Wrestling at like midnight. Mel super high, me super tired. And then we'll
high on life.
Yeah,
and
I'm saying.
Potentially other things too, but mostly life.
Yeah, what else would I mean?
Exactly.
You can find it. We'll be dropping that show on Saturday. Over the next week, we'll have a double pack episodes of New Japan and Stardom throughout the week, covering multiple nights together, talking the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and seventh, and eighth, all the nights of the New Japan Super Junior Tag League. Lots of content to review there. Lots of content coming out. Caffeine. She's high on caffeine. Come on.
Right. I've met Mel, and I totally believe it's caffeine. The woman who's
Definitely
working her ass off to keep her body in shape is going to be on caffeine.
Trust me, she's on.
You know what she's going to be high on? She's going to be high on Rogue Energy. And
Rogue
you can
Energy.
Go ahead and find Rogue Energy right here at our local establishment by going ahead and going to rogueenergy.com or downloading their brand new app. You can go ahead and go on Rogue Energy, and if you have Apple iTunes, you can go ahead and get it there. If you go ahead and have Google, you can get it in the Play Store. All kinds of fine places that you can get Rogue Energy. Mel likes the blood orange. I'm partial to the sour watermelon.
Blue raspberry
is out there. You like the blue raspberry. There you go.
And the blood orange. Those, I like them both.
So yes, and she also says that Red Bull gives you wings. Red Bull may give you wings, but you know what? Our local establishment gives you a promo code for Rogue Energy, which is better than Red Bull. And you can go ahead and go to OLE Pods to get 10% off. Parrish agrees the blue raspberry is the best. I disagree. It's all about the sour watermelon. But you can even try the brand new hydration flavor, Ruby Splash, that they've got going. Make sure you go to rogueenergy.com and use promo code OLE Pods to get 10% off your order. Parrish is telling me they are out of stock on the Ruby Splash. That's a problem because I just got a notification for it today on the app telling me that I should order some. You can over find me on the X at EdFries12584. You can find me on the Twitch where I simulcast all my wonderful content with our local establishment and my gaming content at EdFries2002. You can catch me every Tuesday night with the wonderful Ashton Pizarro as we talk next Tuesday. We talk night 2 of Halloween Havoc, which is main evented by Carmelo Hayes versus Ilya Dragunov 3 as they compete for the World NXT World Championship. Also, the North American Championship is on the line as Nathan Frazier takes on Dominic Mysterio. So that's going to be all kinds of fun. All kinds of good stuff, including 3 more women's matches after 5 women's matches took down AEW Dynamite and Kazuchika Okada. Not even Okada could beat NXT. You can also find me next Wednesday on Wrestle Draft as me and Parrish go ahead and continue Season 3 of Wrestle Draft, where we go ahead and compete at WrestleMania Backlash. And then, like Andre said, next Friday night, we're going to have a double dose of OLED because you're going to get me and Andre C. talking all things Marvel talk. And then you're also going to get me and the one and only Chris Parrish as we do paper previews as we preview WWE's Crown Jewel, which will be taking place next Saturday afternoon from an area that we're not going to talk about because
Me doing this was about Chris Parrish, not about everything else. That was me doing boo to Chris Parrish.
the silence. Andre doesn't want to talk about Kazuchika Okada getting taken down by the ladies of NXT. But for myself,
I
for
honestly,
Andre
dude, I didn't watch, dude. I was at work, so I can't, and I have no opinion here because he wasn't on his main show, so I don't care.
Andre says, Chris Parrish says, Andre, you are the boo.
Oh,
And
sweet! I'm a ghost. I'm a ghost.
We will see you all next week. Have a great week. Talk to you later. Goodbye.